Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast presented by Zillow. Someday starts today. This is where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. Oh, yes, this show, it is special. It is live as we react to the U.S. men's national team roster that has just dropped for the upcoming games versus Portugal and Belgium. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire, also joining us today. Oh, yes, special guests galore and the voices of soccer on Fox, the voices you will hear again this summer as we bring you the World Cup, the great John Strong and Stu Holden. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh, we got a party.
We
got a party.
This is good. Out of hibernation, my friend. I'm sure you've written a couple soccer manifestos as you come out of the wilderness, getting ready for this summer. I was talking to Stu the other day about what is upon us here, but before we talk about this summer, we'll talk a little bit about this summer. Let's just get right into it because I haven't heard from you for a while.
No one has.
I know, exactly. When it comes, all right, well then tell us from that hibernation, all right, from the woods, how has this national team appeared to you as we now are, less than 80 days away and with this roster that is just dropped?
I think it's actually pretty remarkable when you think back to when we were on the field together in L.A. after they lost to Panama last March in the Nations League semifinal, and we did that long chat, and it was like, what's happened here? And then the two friendly losses in June, and we all did a bunch of interviews because it was 1 year to the World Cup, and it was all, what's wrong with this team? Why are they getting blown out? From that point to now, I think is quite remarkable. The momentum is different. The vibe around the team is different. The feeling on the outside is different. I think Mauricio Pochettino, his staff, and these players deserve tons of credit because it is a complete 180 to what we were feeling about this team almost exactly a year ago to, I think, how we're feeling about them right now.
Stu, Mosse's going to take us through the roster here, but before we do that, Mauricio Pochettino over the last few months has made it very clear, and he reiterated it again today, that this March window is important, so much so that he has framed it as this is the start of our World Cup. Now, I know that might be some, hyperbolic type of talk here, but I'm kind of holding him to it. And as we see this roster here, I think some of that is going to come into play. How much do you think is going to be decided in this window for Mauricio Pochettino if this is truly, in fact, the start of the World Cup process?
Well, I did a little bit of looking back at some of the previous World Cup rosters going back to 2010 and how many players from the window before the roster is announced end up making the final roster. And history would tell you it's basically the roster minus 3 or 4 guys. And those positions will go to players that are the hottest in those types of moments. So this is a huge indication where Mauricio Pochettino sees a lot of these players in this pool right now. But what I would say, and even adding on John's point there about, look, the feeling, the vibes, as the kids say, are very high around this team. But if this group of players that we have dubbed essentially pretty close to the roster go ahead and lose to Portugal and to Belgium, that conversation and that optimism almost instantly flips to, once again, are we going to go out in flames this coming summer? So I would say this is a hugely important window. I think Pochettino and his staff and even the players recognize the importance of, look, we've got to keep this good momentum that we've built, this good grace and everything that goes with it. And these results would be fairly judged and not just cast aside as we were doing for many windows where it was like, well, this isn't our roster. Yeah. Well, the next one's going to be our roster. This is pretty close to what our roster would be, and we could look at it, and we're going to I'll kick it over to Mosse here as we go through it. But, Tyler Adams and guys that are maybe missing with injury or guys you're going to say that those guys will be there in the summer. But this is a strong group.
Just to put some numbers to what John said, the U.S. finished 2025 with 4 wins and 1 draw in their last 5 games. They beat Japan, Australia, Paraguay, and then a 5-1 victory over Uruguay. The draw was against Ecuador. All 5 of those are World Cup teams, and Paraguay, in fact, is the U.S.'s opening opponent at the World Cup. But this is certainly a step up in class in this window. They're going to face Belgium on the 28th, Portugal on the 31st, both those games in Atlanta. Mauricio Pochettino today named a 27-player squad for those games. The extra players, because he named 4 goalkeepers. We're going to take it back to front. We'll start with the goalkeepers. Matt Freese, Matt Turner, Roman Celentano, Chris Brady, 4 MLS keepers. John, I'll go to you first. If Freese is etched in stone as the starter, then I think he starts both these games. If there's even a question between Freese and Turner, then maybe one of them gets a game each. How do you see that goalkeeping situation right now?
I feel bad because I'm such a fan of Matt Turner. And it's so unfortunate what has happened in his career. Who's going to say no? It's same as Zach Steffen. Who's going to say no to that big move to Europe? But you get stuck, and it's just – I think we forget what a great goalkeeper he was and can still be. It's not been a great start at New England for him this season, and so I don't see a scenario where we come into June going, I don't know, this is a toss-up. I really think this is Matt Freese's job. You know you have Turner there as a backup option. That's a great option. If something happens to Freese, Matt Turner knows what a World Cup is. He's not going to be phased. And credit to Roman Celentano. This interesting battle, Patrick Schulte's in there, and Gaga Slanino's kind of fallen off the radar. Credit to Roman and what he's done in Cincinnati to have the opportunity now to be at a World Cup.
But you would agree with me that, and certainly relative to history, this is not a position of strength, goalkeeping, right now for this U.S.
Not as
national
compared,
team.
for sure, to the historic Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, Tony Meola, Tim Howard.
All right. But I think you'd also agree with me that Matt Freese is going to start unless something crazy happens here over the next
and I think
few months.
Matt has done what I've seen from Matt Freese. He's done a good job since the Gold Cup of really embracing, I got to be the guy. And I think he's done that with New York City. When I watch him play there, I think he's done that with the U.S. It's still that thing of the big save, the save you're not supposed to make. That opportunity is probably going to come in these friendlies with the quality of opponent the U.S. will play. I would love to see that from Matt Freese. Can he, in one of these two games, make a save that he is not supposed to make in a U.S. shirt? I think that'll go a long way.
Lex,
hold on. Are these two goalkeepers in Chris Brady and Roman Celentano let's just see what they have, or are they fighting out for that third goalkeeper spot right now? I mean, Zach Steffen's nowhere to be found, so it's an interesting.
The third goalie position's a really interesting one because I think back to the World Cup I was a part of in 2010, and you had Marcus Hanneman was our third goalkeeper. Great goalkeeper, played in the Premier League a number of years, but was, I think, ultimately chosen because of what he brought to the group as well. And
you're not going to play.
No, you're not going to play. You're going for not a free ride, but you're training, you're pushing the guys, you're taking the shots after practice, you're putting in the hard yards in a way that is a little bit different. And I think that's what that position is going to come down to, who meshes well with, if we're going to assume it's going to be Turner and Freese as the two that are going to be battling for that number one shirt. I was going to ask you, though, do you feel there's a scenario in which How does Matt Freese lose the position at this point? Does he have bad games in March? Does he not play well with New York City? Or is there a way Matt Turner can win this job
I think
back?
over the next two games, to Mosse's point, if this is the start of the World Cup, you play him both games. If he is your starter. And if he screws up, then I think it's a question. I think that Matt Turner has done enough. I know he has regressed in some people's eyes, but he's still done enough where I think there is a question. Because Matt Freese, for everything that he did last summer, he is still kind of unproven and certainly at the highest level, and we are going into a World Cup. Matt Freese has yet, for me, to prove that at the highest level, it's not about making the saves that you should make. Yeah, it's about making the save that you shouldn't make. And this U.S. team at some point is going to need that. And so in these two games, I think there will be a microscope on Matt Freese and what he has done. And if he slips up, it might be that little jar opening a jar for someone to creep in.
Is it altogether different, though, from Matt Turner 4 years ago in the sense that coming into the 22 World Cup, Matt Turner did not play for the 3 months leading in when he was over in Europe. He had won the Gold Cup. He really split most of the qualifiers with Zach Steffen. It wasn't until late in the game he became the guy. And he had a terrific World Cup. So I also think it's not entirely different from going to Qatar, where we knew who the guy was, but it was still not the same as what it had been historically.
But it's entirely different than going into a World Cup with a Tony Meola or a Casey Keller or a Brad Friedel or a Tim Howard, and the list goes on and on and on. So that's
I think just to round it out, I think there's two things you want from your starting goalkeeper. One is an ability to come up with that big save when you're counted upon. Two is an ability through confidence and making those saves that no matter what, you carry an aura and that exudes through the rest of your team, that your team knows that when that time comes, they've got your back. If somebody slips and there's a shot that sneaks through, that they're going to make that save. And that's why when we go back to the Gold Cup last year, Matt Freese had that big moment in the penalty shootout. And I think there was a feeling going into shootouts after that, or if you're going to a shootout, we got a guy that can make some saves. Now can he do it in these friendlies ahead of a World Cup, to where the team, the back line, there's cohesion, and there's a security that comes along with it. That's going to be the big difference.
Make that save, capital T.
make
Mosse,
that save.
moving on.
I predict 16-year-old Leonard Prescott as a
Here we go.
blinder
Here
for
we
Bayern
go.
Munich tomorrow in the Champions League. It ends up starting for the U.S. at the World Cup.
Brian Schwacke.
There you go, Shawaki
Nashville
time.
SC. Tune in tomorrow night.
Oh, my goodness.
In terms of defenders, I know it's fluid, but I'm going to approach it as if the U.S. is going to be in a 3-4-2-1 in these games, and I'm going to lump defenders and wingbacks together. You have 5 center backs by trade: Richards, Ream, Miles Robinson, McKenzie, and Trusty. Then you have Scally, who's a bit of a hybrid, Alex Freeman, who we know can play as that third center back, but I actually think in the absence of Dest, Freeman in the squad is more of a wing back. And I even think Timmy Weah, who I know is listed as a forward, in this squad is more of a wing back as well on that right side. And then you have Jedi and Arfston as your left wing backs. John, again, I'm going to go to you first on Tim Ream. There is some concern out there given his age.
There is?
Given his,
I haven't seen any of that. What do you mean?
Hey, even in the woods, he heard it. He heard the news.
Yeah, given his form for Charlotte this season, particularly there was a game against the Galaxy that got a lot of attention, a play that went viral in which Gabriel Peck just burst right past him to set up a goal. As we approach this World Cup, how comfortable are you with the notion of Tim Ream still having a big role to play?
1,000% comfortable. And that's the first of my many hot takes that I will
Wow.
give. I have no
Clip
problem
that
at
one
all.
off.
That was a rough moment early in a season. It was a bad game for Charlotte FC. The thing with Tim Ream, and this was obvious to us last summer at the Gold Cup, he has Mauricio Pochettino's complete faith and trust in who he is as a professional, how he prepares his body, what he brings to the team as a leader. And I think this is where we get caught up in the sort of projected starting lineup thing. It depends on the opponent. Because if you're thinking that you're playing the first 2 games especially, where you're going to have most of the ball, you're trying to break down a lower block team, that's where Tim Ream brings so much because his comfort on the ball. And if you have 2 other center backs with him, he doesn't necessarily need to get in a 60-yard foot race. So if there's one guy on this team that I'm not worried about him being physically and mentally prepared and ready to go and can bring something to the team, it's Tim Ream. Does it mean he's going to start every game? No, because at different profiles at different times. But I think it's important for people to understand Mauricio Pochettino and his staff, they love Tim Ream, and they're going to give him every opportunity to be a really important part of this U.S. team.
That means conceivably, if it goes well for the U.S., we might not come up against a team that is going to have more possession
Until
than
Belgium in the round of 16.
Round of 16, yeah.
Very possibly.
And then Tim Ream, you've done a wonderful job getting us here. You're going to go on the bench. Whoa.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. There's a couple interesting dynamics when it comes to the back line for me, and it's this constant conversation between should it be a 4, should it be a 3.
Are you with Mosse in that you're?
I'm not sure.
Is that
I
the preferred
I was
lineup now with
pushing,
3?
I would still play with 3 if I was.
I
the
know
coach,
you would.
but
What's Poch
I'm
doing?
not sure that Pochettino is going to play with 3. And here's my one player who has become the surprise player that I think dictates almost all of this, and it's Miles Robinson, because Chris Richards is not a natural center back in a 3. He is a right center back in a 3. He plays it every week for Crystal Palace. That's his strongest role. It's very different, as you know, in that back line between being a guy that steps into the midfield to make challenges, use his athleticism, versus being the guy, and we saw this in a couple of the friendlies, where if he's in the back alone, it's more decision-making, organizing. And I think in an ideal world, I'm interested to see what ends up happening here. If Miles Robinson can play at the center of the 3, Tim Ream on the left, and then Chris Richards on the right, then you go to Freeman and Anthony Robinson. Otherwise, I think it's actually 4. I think it's Alex Freeman as a right back. I think it's Ream and Richards, and then I think it's Anthony Robinson as your left back, and then Freeman becomes the player that rotates forward either side with Anthony Robinson. I think that is where Pochettino is going to lean, because it gives you an ability to go left or right versus being more predictable in the back.
Now,
I don't know. I could come up with a good argument for both, which lastly also speaks to John's point, which is I think it depends on the opponent. And that's what Pochettino has really been working on the last couple of windows. You've seen both.
We might see a back 3 and a back 4 at different times.
Yeah, because
in the
they're
group
actually
stage.
not that different. It's just how you build in your offensive shape and defensive shape.
There was a lot of talk today about Weston McKennie and Tanner Tespin's versatility. The player I'm most curious about pinning down his position is Timmy Weah, because I just said it. He was listed as a forward today. I treat him as a wing back, while Doug McIntyre came out with a projected 11 in which he was one of the 3 center backs. I don't know what you think of that, but just as we sit here today, if you had to guess, which position on the field will Timmy Weah spend the majority of the minutes at this World Cup? What would it be?
Well, definitely not in Doug's, okay? I'll tell you, Dougie, I love
Doug's
you, man.
bringing back two.
Doug, what are we playing here? We're going to get killed if Timmy Weah is expected to be our right center back unless we have 9,000% possession of the ball. I think, look, even read between the lines here. Tim Weah is listed as a forward. Sometimes the coaches will list a player at midfield or defense, or it tries to give you a little bit of an indication where we think we see him. I think Weah is flexible. I actually don't think he's a starter right now for this group. And so his most value could be as a right wing back, which would potentially put him in competition with Alex Freeman, but then Freeman could play as the right center back. We got options, guys. That's a good thing.
So of the defenders listed, let's just go with that. Who is on the bubble right now? Are you looking at Scally, Trusty, McKenzie, those types of players that are
I think
on the bubble?
Scally's on the bubble. I would say Austin Trusty's on the bubble for sure.
Okay.
If you're going, there's a lot of center backs to your point that are listed.
Can we have the Noah Kai Banks conversation?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Can
let's
we?
go.
Well, hold on, real
Henry.
quick, I will add on Mark McKenzie, which I think is notable. He barely played at the Gold Cup, but he keeps getting called in. And I think that's a clue that part of this is at the end of the roster, you need to have guys that are cool not playing.
Yep.
So I think Mark McKenzie will win tiebreakers over other guys because clearly he's been a good sort of locker room type presence. I just want to point that real quick. But yes, Noah Kai Banks.
When Pochettino was asked about Noah Kai Banks today, I expected him to say, and certainly if Alexi Lalas or Stu Holden was the U.S. manager, this is what would have been said. This is the greatest country in the world. We're not going to wait on anybody. We want somebody that views the U.S. as their first choice. But no, Pochettino I actually thought was very generous to Banks. He said, we want him. We're recruiting him. He's not ready to make a decision, but we're going to keep trying to get him. So I came away from today, and you can tell me if you interpret it differently, that if in the next 2 months, Noah Kai Banks decides, yes, I do want to play for the U.S. at this World Cup, there's a great chance of him being in the squad. Is that how you interpreted it?
That's how you interpreted it?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Really?
I interpreted it that ship has sailed, and we wish him well. And when I say sailed for this summer. Doesn't mean it's sailed from a U.S. men's national team perspective in the future.
So you agree with Lex?
I don't think so at all.
So the World Cup hasn't really started.
I think the World Cup
then. The World Cup hasn't really started.
Well, not for Noah Kai Banks.
He has a special start of a World Cup.
Listen, I would like Noah
guy
Kai
that's never
Banks.
played a single minute for the U.S. men's national team.
And
he has a okay, all right. So the World Cup.
The guy's a great soccer player.
So,
if the guy in the next couple of
so Pochettino's full of crap, okay? And
why is he full of crap?
Because if the World Cup is started, you are healthy, and you got the guy starting for us this summer, then you bring him in.
But what he's saying is Noah Kai Banks is not quite ready to say I'm all in yet. And what I didn't have the opportunity to say, I saw you say on your podcast, I, like you, want a player to feel that they are fully invested in this and I want to be a part of the U.S. men's national team. I'm also okay if he takes a little bit of time to get to that position, if he's not there yet. But over the next couple of weeks, if he says, okay, guys, Mauricio, I'm committed, I'm in, I'm all in, let's go, man, let's ride. I want him a part of that roster.
Look, I'm not saying that he's not a good player, but he's not a supermodel, okay? Supermodel, you give a little grace. You say, all right, listen, maybe you'll go out for me later on, and okay, that's fine. But no. It's done for me now.
No.
Oh,
it's not done for me.
It's not done for you.
Because he fundamentally increases the ability and options that we have in the back as a right center back. You would be doing a disservice to this country by not considering him if he makes that decision over the next couple of weeks.
Why can't he make the decision now? Why doesn't he need 3 months to make that decision?
I don't even want to pretend to understand what he's going through because he spent a lot of his life in Germany. Look, I can actually speak to some of this because I moved here at 10 years old. And at that point, I was very Scottish. I had not graced these shores and understood what it meant. But after spending a long period of my life here, I felt very American. I wanted to represent the U.S. men's national team. I was in the youth system here. It wasn't even actually at that point a thought for me to go and represent Scotland. I was all in on the U.S., but I didn't have a decision to make until later, once I'd gotten further down the U.S. line where Scotland were like, oh, hold on, maybe we should consider this kid.
But do you think he's going to play for Germany this summer?
Maybe. I don't know.
That's the part of this. That's the part of this equation that confuses me. It's not clear to me if Germany are interested in him. People keep talking about that. I've yet to see any quotes from the German
It's not like, by the way,
Federation.
Germany is the Germany of the past. Have you seen Germany recently?
Wow. Okay. I mean, look, Okay.
I actually think that's disrespectful to Noah Kai Banks, that
Why?
you wouldn't think that Germany's even considering that he could be a part of their roster.
No, I'm
this year.
asking you whether you think Germany actually has him
No,
in his
but you're
plan.
saying it's like blasphemy to
No,
even
because
think that that's
if you tell me,
it's a
if you tell
possibility.
me he's literally saying, "Oh my God, Germany wants me to play this summer, and the U.S. wants me to play this summer,"
They might be.
I don't think that's the case at all. You think Germany? No.
You're about to do it. You're about to even just disregard it completely that that's a possibility. Have you watched
I don't
him play
think that's the
recently?
case.
He's a good player.
I think it's either the U.S. or nothing this summer. I'm not saying that he might not play for Germany later on, but as far as this summer, it's either the U.S. or nothing. And so he said, no, I don't want to be in there. Okay, fine. We need to move on. We have 80-something days until the World Cup.
John, I want to ask you a larger question about dual nationals, but do you have anything on Banks first you want to say?
Yeah, but what I will just say
Don't
is
hold
this.
back.
I think there's two issues here. I think the first is a 19-year-old kid, and a 19-year-old is a kid. And I've seen 19-year-olds.
Why is he a kid? Lamine Yamal's a kid?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
I think we get this so wrong in sports. I've seen 19-year-olds twist themselves into balls of anxiety over what they're going to major in college. He's not thinking about this World Cup. He's thinking about the rest of his professional life. And whatever cynicism I might have over, is this the German Federation? Is this his agent? Where's some of this stuff coming from? I think he's agonizing over a decision that he's struggling to figure out. To your point, so I think that's your side, Stu, of this is a hard thing for this kid to figure out. Your point is, are we reserving a spot on the roster for a player that's never played and a player that's kind of struggling with this thing? The one thing I would always go back to is we've had a lot of these dual nationals over the years, and we've had a lot of histrionics over whether they have or have not chosen to play for the U.S. I don't feel that there's any of them that have, by them not playing for the U.S., it's ruined everything. By them playing for the U.S. has been the missing piece, and it led us to I'm never a believer that one player has that much impact. So I would just say, everyone chill out. Let the kid figure out what he's going to do. I don't think it impacts massively what happens this summer. I think it's more one way or the other for 2030 and 2034.
But wouldn't it run completely counter to what Mauricio Pochettino has preached? And I also think he actually is, in that, in that greatest tradition of Herb Brooks, where it's the best collection of players as opposed to the best players.
Which he emphasized today. Yeah.
But he has cultivated this group over the last 2 years. Yeah. And so wouldn't it completely be out of character for him to, at the last minute, bring in a player who's never played a single minute, who's still, we don't even know if he wants to play for this team, and bring him in for the World Cup?
Yeah, but it would be different if this kid just appeared out of thin air. He was in a camp with the U.S., so the
and
coaches...
he's played youth national team stuff.
Played youth national teams with the U.S.,
Yeah.
So there is a history there, and some of the reports, because I've asked about this kid and what his character is like, everybody raves that he's a great kid.
Oh, I'm not questioning
but
how he
I'm
is
just
as-
saying, I wouldn't... My point in saying that is I wouldn't hesitate to say, look, he's familiar with the guys, he's a good professional, he's a good soccer player, and he's picked the U.S., and we're going to bring him in. And we're going to bring him, which, by the way...
Until he takes your spot.
Yeah. But
and you've come in at every
listen,
single camp, and you've performed.
That's soccer.
It's not show friends, it's show business.
No, I
will say, to your
get
point...
that. But again, this is not Messi who we're bringing in.
Yes, I'm aware of that too. Yeah.
My observation of Mauricio Pochettino is he is, at the end of the day, a pragmatist. And he is going to do what he feels is best for this team to succeed.
Yeah, and winning trumps all. I get that. All right, should we move?
You
Do we have a midfield?
You sort of answered this already, but I just want to say, I understand the United States is a nation of immigrants. I also understand a lot of soccer fans in this country are college football and college basketball fans, so this concept of recruiting is second nature to them. But even allowing for all that, it still blows my mind how crazy some U.S. fans get about dual national recruitment. I literally saw a post on X. I don't care how good a coach Mauricio Pochettino is. The fact that he doesn't embrace dual national recruitment makes him a bad fit. He should have never been hired. There are people that think
that's your fault for reading the comments on social media. Bless you, but
dual national recruitment is some existential issue that's going to make or break the future of American
soccer. And keep in mind, if we're going to compare it to college football, your commitment as a 17-year-old means nothing because you can just transfer somewhere else. This is a decision, and it's not even for a club, right? He's at Augsburg now. He might be somewhere else this summer. This is quite literally his entire life as an international player. that you can't undo it, whatever decision he makes. And I think we need to realize how significant and difficult that is.
Can we redshirt him? We should redshirt him. Okay.
Yeah, is that an Oregon fan still bitter that a portal built Indiana thumped you?
Wow.
wow.
Bless them. And I, we can talk Dante more if you want, but I'm saying I think we...
What does Pochettino's NIL fund look like?
Yeah.
Slush fund.
Yeah.
But I think that's the problem is we make this into these. This is a young kid who's going like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want my future to be. That's hard.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, let's go to the midfield, and let's start with the players that I consider the holding midfielders. And I no longer consider Weston McKennie in that group. I think Pochettino clearly views him as one of those two underneath the striker. So you're looking at Sebastian Berhalter, Christian Roldan, Aiden Morris, Tanner Tessman, Johnny Cardoso. I know you were a big believer in Johnny Cardoso getting another opportunity, and here he is in the squad.
He's earned it. And I think it's further proof that you can play your way back into the picture with Mauricio Pochettino. But what I will say is, again, what a huge opportunity for him, especially with Tyler Adams, not a part of this roster, to right the wrongs is probably a little bit overstating. But there is just this feeling about Johnny Cardoso that he can do it at the club level, and then when he puts on that U.S. men's national team shirt, that it all crumbles. I said the last time when we did the pod that some of the rosters and games and situations he had been a part of were coming off the March into those June friendlies. They lost against European opponents. It wasn't necessarily the A group. This is the A group. And if he gets an opportunity to start in this, he's going to be judged as such. And can he find a way to be one of those pieces and link well and show the club form that he's had with Atletico Madrid? I'm incredibly high on Johnny's ability. I just want to see now that mental switch. He's fully fit and healthy. There's nothing else you could want from that standpoint. And can he play his way not just into the squad, but a starting position potentially? Because we always kind of considered that Weston McKennie might be next to Tyler, and that would be the two. But I do think that Pochettino sees Weston further up the field. But all these hypotheticals, we're actually going to get a lot of answers to in this window. That the second that lineup comes out, it's going to be less guessing than we've had in the past of, is this experimental? Because I do believe this will be the biggest look about where he sees certain people in that certain formation.
I think we all believe that Tyler Adams, if he's healthy, is an automatic on this team. The other player not here is Diego Luna, who oftentimes is listed there. Do we all believe that Diego Luna, if he had been fully healthy, would have been in this roster?
On this roster, yes.
Okay. Do you think he will
Whose
make?
place does he take?
Well,
then?
that's what I'm saying. So if we look back at the midfield that is brought in, who do you think is odd man out if Diego Luna is 100% healthy and you believe that he's getting brought in? Someone like Aid Morris or
I think it's a Gio versus
Yeah, I think you're lumping in the holding midfielders with the guys further up the field. So I think the question is, when you put Tyler Adams back, which guy of that Tessman, Morris, Johnny, Berhalter, Roldan mix drops out if you have
I would say Morris is on the outside there.
And then moving to the guys further up the field, then you've got Pulisic, Aronson, Gio, Tillman, and Weston McKennie in that group, who we're now considering one of those two underneath a striker. To your point, no Luna, no Zendejas. So I think Gio Reyna is the most fascinating name in this entire squad because, as we've talked about, he's back in the wilderness at club level. But Mauricio Pochettino, and he actually hinted at this in some of his recent comments, he was impressed enough with what Gio did in November, particularly that Paraguay match, that I think he bought himself a lot of currency there. And so regardless of what happens at club level, he feels like Gio's talented enough to merit a place in the squad. So that does throw a little bit of a curveball for Luna. I suddenly don't think Diego Luna is like an absolute
No, he's not a lock.
No.
Luna is not a lock. Luna has shown a lot in his short time with the U.S. men's national team. I thought the Gold Cup was really that opportunity where he raised his profile, but that was never the A group. That was missing a lot of players. And the question, and we try to frame this throughout the Gold Cup, is of, look, these are guys that are really trying to push themselves into that upper echelon of the U.S. men's national team program. That's why I almost feel a little bit, it would have been more interesting was Luna fully fit and healthy to start the season, because I do think that then becomes between Aronson, Gio, and Luna, and I think only two of that three go.
Musical chairs, baby.
You think so? I think that's what it is.
I think so, too. I think a number of things happen here today. Number one, and this is just in general, coaches are going to say all sorts of things, platitudes and idealistic type of talk, whether it's Pochettino or anybody else, even the best coaches out there. To your point about being pragmatic and practical, ultimately they are going to pick you. And they're going to tell you, you should be playing well, and I want you to be playing well at the club. I've said time and time again, form is fallacy, and I think Gio Reyna is a perfect example of it. And I think it's a testament to just how talented he is. You may not like him necessarily, but I think everybody recognizes that from a young age, everybody recognized how talented he was, that they are willing to give him chance after chance after chance. You think Yunus Musa wants these types of chances? You think other players out there that just aren't playing and that aren't involved in him would say, yeah, but look at Gio Reyna. Yeah, you know why? Because he's talented. And guess what? Life isn't fair, and soccer isn't fair. And yes, even the national team isn't fair, no matter what the coaches say.
It's amazing. We don't even talk about Musa anymore as a snub. He's actually done more at club level recently than Gio. He scored a couple of goals for Atalanta, but I'm totally fine with Gio being in and Musa out because of what Gio showed us in November.
I'd actually go even one further. The name that I'm sure you're going to go search X after this and find all the comments is people are going to flip out that Christian Roldan is on this list again, and we haven't talked about him yet. But there's part of me that just wonders sometimes, does Yunus Musa, looking back right now at some of the decisions and how ill-advised I think he was in a moment going back to the Gold Cup by turning down that Gold Cup opportunity with the U.S. and telling Pochettino, I need a rest and, I need some time to decompress after the season, because look where he's found himself now. And even in a situation where, by the way, Gio Reyna has come into camp and almost rehabbed his image with the coaching staff at a time where we all thought Gio was out. His attitude stunk and this and that. No, actually, Gio's been able to prove to Mauricio Pochettino that he wants to be there, so much so that he's not even getting a sniff at the club level, yet he's called in Christian Roldan. We all know what he brings, and whether you like it or not, at the end of that roster, you need guys that you can count on that will train hard, will be good teammates, and I think if it came down to even just ability alone, Yunus Musa is probably edging ahead of Christian Roldan. But you know what? The total package, Roldan is a mile ahead of Yunus Musa right now, and that's something he's done to himself.
Isn't it crazy that we're at a moment right now where Gio Reyna is back with given all the craziness, Gio Reyna is back with the national team, and Sebastian Berhalter might be going to the World Cup, the son of the fired coach. Amazing stuff.
John, where do you come down on all this Gio Luna stuff?
I mean, it's a half an hour answer with all the different things you guys are talking about. I think there's a couple things I'll say. I actually think we overstate as sort of a linear connection, club form to national team form, good or bad. I think, and you have in Gio Reyna and Johnny Cardoso two interesting examples. Gio, sort of like Christian Pulisic for a time, he would be not playing at Chelsea, but would come in and be fantastic with the U.S. Johnny Cardoso has earned the trust of Diego Simeone, which is not easy to do. But can he translate that? That was the Josh Sargent challenge, is he was clearly doing well with his club, but it didn't translate. I think we overstate how easy that is, because the circumstances are totally different. I think it also speaks to one of the things that was really important about this team in this cycle, is to move away from we've got a set 11 guys and kind of not much else to we need some competition. We need competition for places on the field. We need competition for places on the roster, and we have that now. I think that's very healthy. And to what you're talking about, Stu, and it's interesting, earlier today, Stu and I were chatting with BJ Callahan, who was the assistant coach with Greg Berhalter, now is coaching in Nashville. We're doing Miami-Nashville tomorrow. And we talked with him a little bit about these dynamics and how difficult it is to piece together a 26-man roster, because you're thinking about not just who are the best guys available, but what sort of situations might we have in the 3 games we know that we'll have, in the potential knockout opponents. What do we do if this is the case? What do we do if that's the case? But also, as BJ said, guys that are going to be on there that might not play much, but are going to be the scout team in practice and can do, hey, we need you to act like this dude today because we're playing against them, and to do all those sorts of things. There will always, always, always be a place for guys like Christian Roldan on these types of rosters. I think he's earned it. I think he's deserved it. And I will say this, like the Tim Ream thing, I will not blink. I will not hesitate for a nanosecond about Christian Roldan coming onto the field of the World Cup, whether the U.S. is holding on by a goal or is desperate to find a goal. Because I know that young man, who I've seen since he was a rookie, is going to give every inch of his being for this team and for this country. Those are the dudes I want on the field.
Lex, I don't know if you remember, but we taped the pod at the start of this year, and I actually said that I thought one of the biggest storylines for the U.S. national team was that Weston McKennie might be on the outs a little bit with Pochettino, and there might not be a place for him in the starting lineup in this 3-4-2-1 formation. I've been spectacularly wrong about that, because the way Pochettino talked about him today, you could tell he's all in on Weston.
He said Juventus is
Weston plus 10.
I love that.
So Weston McKennie Uh-oh.
No, I was just going to say, but I don't think you were misplaced in the moment because, as always with Weston, there has been some uncertainty at times. I think that's okay to say while also recognizing how far he has come over this last year. I was actually with you, too, because he was out of form at club, once again changing coaches. He hadn't scored for the U.S. in over a year. His performances with the U.S. weren't great. Weston is now arguably in a year shifted the narrative to, like, I saw you talking about this too, Lexi. I think he's as important, if not more important, than Christian Pulisic for this team next summer because Pulisic is involved for the most part in one part of the field. That's the forward part. Weston's everywhere. Weston has that ability to be the heartbeat of this team and be the guy, as you said as well 2 years ago. He has the biggest Alexi Lalas potential to come out of this and be
a much higher.
Yeah.
Would you agree? We're talking about Reyna and Luna and too many of these guys. They're all super subs at this point because if the World Cup started tomorrow, Pulisic and Weston are those two underneath the striker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we were talking about the midfield, so who's in the midfield then for you?
So then it's Adams and one more, and I think that one more is wide open right now. Could be
Who's that one more for you, Stu?
Testament to Johnny, to Roldan, to Berholm.
Can I talk to you after the window? I want to say Johnny. I want it to be Johnny.
Yep.
I really I think those two can complement each other well. The other player I have, and you guys know how I am on this player, it's Tanner Tessman.
Yep.
But, seeing what's going on with him at club level, he played at center back. I agree with Pochettino. One of the things I like about him is his range as an athlete, his range of passing as a player, but also he's got the brains up here.
And by the way, real quick, it's entirely possible that there's going to be a really, really good soccer player, maybe a couple of them, who don't play much at this World Cup. That's a very good thing. That's not something we have dealt with a lot over the years with the United States. How can you possibly not play that guy? Well, only so many guys can play. The top nations in the world have remarkable players rotting on their bench or not even making the roster. That might happen this summer, and people need to kind of wrap their heads around that.
I think people, lastly on Tanner, I think people were freaking out a little bit, too, at the potential prospect of him playing as a center back because he could also be that center of the three. It would take a lot, though, between now and the summer of full learn-up, so I just want to temper that one a little bit, but options.
In terms of center forwards, there are three. Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, who we found out today, Fabrizio Romano posting it, that he is going to head to Fulham next season.
I thought Fabrizio was canceled, no?
And then Patrick Agyemang. The same question.
We'll edit that out when we post this later. Wait, what?
The same question I asked you about Fries and Turner applies here. If Balogun is etched in stone as a starter, I think he gets both games. But if Balogun versus Pepi is still a question, then maybe they each get one game. How do you see the center forward situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is the incumbent, Balogun, and then I think right now it's Pepi. The interesting thing is here, Patrick Agyemang, who we know had a great summer, but there was an element of a newborn foal stumbling around the paddock in the way that he looked on the field. I think he has matured as a player. He's scoring goals. Now, keep in mind that Haji Wright is not here because of injury, and he could still play. But what if Agyemang gets into these next two games and scores a bunch of goals?
I was going to say, when talking about people that are only absent because of injury, I see people talking about Haji Wright with the same degree of certitude as Dest and Adams, and I don't put him quite on that level.
No, not at all.
I think the thing going against the strikers is every formation we talk about playing it's always 3-4-2-1 or 4-2-3-1. There's one.
But you think he's going to take three strikers then?
I think he'll take three. Okay. I just don't see a scenario where, unless you're going to say, look, Haji, which he's played in the past,
he can play multiple
wide.
positions. Yeah.
He can play wide, but what we've seen this season with Coventry is play the guy through the middle. He's going to score a ton of goals. That is his best position, and you're not trying to. And I think it's Pepi and Balogun, and then it's Wright and Agyemang, and then it comes down to scenario based of who do we feel in a moment that we can go to off the bench, which Haji Wright was in 2022 against the Netherlands. He comes off and he scores a goal and creates some stuff. So that's going to be the conversation. And unfortunately, one of those guys is I don't think will go to the World Cup.
By the way, if Formus fallacy is true, and it's not always true. I mean, Agyemang's doing great right now, but Balogun is flying right now. These are all good things. And any coach is going to want the players playing well at club. That's a good thing, all things being equal to. But it has to be able to translate. Balogun has come in, and I love what he's doing now at the club. I also love what he's doing with the national team when he comes in because I can't remember what game it was where he scored, where he wasn't really involved, but he got that goal. And that's ultimately what you need from that one guy, again, Stu, that you keep mentioning that guy. It might not be your day in terms of getting chance after chance after chance, but if you sniff out that one goal, Most important thing in this game is scoring goals. The most valuable thing is scoring goals. The most valuable people in the game are the ones that can put the ball in the back of the net.
Balogun, every time he's been on the field for the U.S. over the last year, he makes stuff happen, whether he scores or doesn't score, but yet the most important thing as a striker is putting that ball in the back of the net. But I would say what I have loved is watching his ability to drop underneath, to be an option as a hold-up striker, to run into the channels. And the other thing I like about a striker, and this was Josh Sargent's big problem, he couldn't create chances for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And Balogun, if he gets one-on-one versus a guy, he's going to beat that guy. He's going to create a goal. He's going to run. He has the industry to do that. And that is a special skill that comes from your ability to find the right timing and the right run in the right moment and finish off a play. So that's what Balogun has, I think, even more so than Pepe, more so than Wright, and more so than Adjumang.
All right, so that's the squad. Incidentally,
Can I one point I was going to add
Sure,
there,
sure.
too, because you guys talk about this. Ricardo Pepi 2 seasons ago was the top scoring substitute in the big European leagues. Ricardo Pepi, as much as I think he would prefer to be a starter, has shown to be very effective scoring goals off the bench. It's a different skill set.
Yep.
The other thing that I would say, it was obvious at the Gold Cup, Mauricio Pochettino and his staff loved Patrick Adjumang. They loved him. And they specifically loved the type of player he is, the profile he is, the center of gravity type center forward. I think Patrick Adjumang wins the tiebreaker over Haji Wright if it comes down to the two of them, unless there's some big, massive thing because of the type of center forward he is and the type of profile Pochettino and his staff want to be a part of this team.
All right, so that's the U.S. squad. We're still waiting, by the way, on the Portugal squad, unless it's been released while we're on the air. But I've seen conflicting things about Cristiano Ronaldo, whether he's going to be fit or not. Portugal play Mexico and the U.S. in this window, so we'll see about that. But big picture, we'll make this the home team update presented by Zillow. Someday starts today. Lex, I'll go to you first. What would constitute a successful window for you?
Successful window
Yes.
is actually if it lives up to the Pochettino promise, in that I see a team out there that I don't think is experimental, that I think is confident. Obviously, the scoreline is important. But more importantly, I want to be filled with confidence that the way you started off this show was talking about how, a year ago, the way that we felt is very different than the way we feel right now. But it can go back and forth. I would not want us to regress. And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to go out and beat Portugal and Belgium. These are great tests for us. But I want, once those two games are over, to us to say, all right, I get what Pochettino is doing. He has different options. There's some depth out there. But these players recognized in this window that the World Cup has, quote unquote, started. And it showed on the field in the way that they played. Obviously, the performance that they had, the grit, the spirit, the cohesiveness that Pochettino has instilled in them over the last couple of years. And again, how that manifests can be in a number of different ways, but you should hopefully feel much better than you feel right now about this team as we barrel down the track towards this World Cup this summer.
Oh, whose turn? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. I think what success looks like is that there is a continuation of the ideas and the performances that we have seen in recent windows, because I think it's important, not for us on the outside, I think it's important for the team on the inside to feel like they have a man in charge, and Mauricio Pochettino, and all the different methods and all the different rosters and all the tweaks and changes and mind games, that the coming together of a team is truly a team now. That's the most important thing that I would wish for this team. Now, in saying that, I'm going to go on the opposite side. And if you remember before the 2022 World Cup, we got absolutely rolled in the two friendlies before. The sky was falling. Berhalter is a joke. This team isn't going to be successful. They're too young. Everything you could say. And we realized in that very first game against Wales and then England and Iran that none of that really mattered. All that is going to matter is ultimately once we get to June 13th and that ball rolls at SoFi Stadium and what this team looks like. So I beg you out there, we're going to make wild conclusions. It's what we do. It is our job to analyze and to scrutinize this roster, which is the closest we are going to come to what this World Cup team is going to look like. But there's also every chance we might get rolled against Portugal and Belgium, and you're going to come on here again and say Pochettino needs to get fired or something crazy.
How dare you ask for perspective from an American fan base when it comes to sports, let alone American media when it comes to sports?
John, a successful window?
And even 2002, we lost Chris Armas 5 days before the World Cup started, and they made a quarterfinal. Normally, I'm very pragmatic in friendlies. It's about performances, guys getting opportunities. I actually think there's a lot of importance on the results here. Not for the sake of I think building confidence is important against top teams. I think for that casual American sports fan that is now in the next 3 months going to start thinking about the World Cup, I do, like last June when they lose to Turkey and Switzerland, we look at it and we go, well, of course they did. Look at the guys that were on the field. But the casual fan is like, we just got beat by 2 teams. I think it's really important that either you 2 draws or a win and a loss or win and a draw. I think results are really important just from a getting the country excited about this tournament standpoint.
But do you think that fundamentally changes then what happens in June?
Not at all. I don't think it's any actual effect on how they do at the World Cup. I think it just affects what the narrative and the vibe and all these sorts of things are for sort of this larger, outside of the million core soccer fans in this country, the other 19 that are going to show up for the Paraguay game. How do they feel about the team as opposed to like in the week before those last 2 games?
Now, Lex, you mentioned that these 2 have been in hibernation, but they're going to be very busy these next 2 weeks. This week, we have loads of CONCACAF Champions Cup action. They're calling 3 matches. Today, it's Alajuelense LAFC. Tomorrow, Inter Miami Nashville. Then Thursday, Mount Pleasant against the Galaxy. Then the week after, you've got, in the international one, you've got Wales, Bosnia-Herzegovina, right? England, Uruguay, friendly
England,
at Wembley.
Uruguay, not Argentina, Spain, yes.
A UEFA playoff final to be determined. You were supposed to call the Finalissima. Yes. That got canceled, obviously. Just give me, John, your overall thoughts. We're 3 months out. You're going to get to call a World Cup in the United States. How excited are you?
I have daily panic attacks, but that's normal. That's before every World Cup I've had.
You got to work with Stu.
Now?
So I understand. Totally understandable.
I was saying the other day, it's starting to feel like it. Like just especially this rhythm of this week, preparing for 3 games in 3 days and then immediately turning around for next week. And we've got some fun stuff even going on behind the scenes here in LA next week where it's going to start to feel real. We roll right into the Champions Cup quarterfinals and semifinal in April, and that's always busy and fun. And then you get to May. And when you're in May, that's when the prep actually starts. So it's starting to really feel real even this week, the last couple of days. I think about that for these U.S. players, man. When they show up, Sunday late or Monday in Atlanta, and they're coming to camp, and then they're playing these games at a World Cup stadium with a World Cup grass surface against World Cup opponents, this is when it really starts to feel real. And we've been thinking about this for 8 years. Yeah. I remember where we were on final approach into Sochi, and we got the notifications on our phones that the vote had taken place and the U.S. was going to host a World Cup along with Canada and Mexico. Like, we're 3 months away from that now. It's crazy.
Yeah. I was in Austin this past weekend with my good friend here, Alexi Lalas. We saw the world premiere of the Summer of '94 doc, and it was awesome. So
you can see it on Fox, by the way, in May.
May 23rd, it is going to debut on the Fox network. I texted John straight after the showing, and I said, you are going to love this. Soccer fans in America are going to love it. And the reason I bring this up is because I said this to Alexi in Austin. I said, look, I was a fan in 94. I didn't understand at 10 years old, 9 years old, what was going on.
We were so young, Alexi. We didn't even understand what was happening.
But we weren't engrossed in it in the way in which we are now. And I love the behind the scenes look of Bora and the team making and the camp that they had in Mission Viejo and all this stuff. And all of that to say is, I just think about now where this country is from a soccer perspective and what this country is going to be in this summer. And we have all been a part of this journey and this ride. But man, it is just going to be awesome to be attached to this in any way, shape, or form. I asked you, Alexi, I'm going to tee you up for it here, but I asked him after, I said, if you had one piece of advice from what you went through in that experience of being a part of that roster, that process, what would you give to this current group of players? And do you remember what you said?
No. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
It was late in the bar.
It was don't settle. Don't settle.
Don't settle. Yes, yeah. Exactly. You will put you'll put limits on yourself, or others will put limits on you. Don't accept them.
But that was in respect that you guys weren't expected to get out of the group or anything.
I
and
know,
then you said there was almost an exhale at that point, and you're saying
greedy.
Aim higher.
Want more. Aim higher. Exactly.
My final comment, and then Lex, you can bring us home. I'm going to give you a prediction right now. World Cup final this summer. Germany 1, US 0, and a goal by Noah Kai Bank.
He's the GOAT for a reason, you know, this guy.
Listen, thank you to both of you. And before we go, you mentioned the World Cup. There's nothing better than a World Cup except one thing, and that is a home World Cup. And whether you're playing on the field or whether you have the responsibility, and I think you do look at it as a responsibility. And I'll finish it with this. Yes, these are some younger people next to me. John Strong in particular, as we know, is, I think, the voice of American soccer, whether it's on Fox or anywhere else. But this is a man who has almost been planning for this summer his entire life. And I say that only because there was a time where talking about soccer on television and being a play-by-play announcer for soccer was a stepping stone or a detour or something that you were just doing until something else came along. This is a man from a young age who has wanted to do this, who has worked his ass off, has already done wonderful things out there. And so it does warm the cockles of my redheaded American heart to know that you are going to be given this opportunity. Now, again, you have to work with Stu, but you got to work through things in life. Stu, I think you are not just a wonderful friend, but you are also a voice. And to see you grow into this role and the maturity that you bring, the experience that you bring, the illustration of the game that you constantly provide for people out there. And as we know, a lot of people are coming into this tent that aren't necessarily soccer fans. We love the soccer fans, okay? But the reality is we want as many people to come in. And the way that you two together and individually invite people in and give them the experience, whether they're into soccer or not, that is wonderful for us at Fox, but I think it's more importantly wonderful for soccer out there. Mosse, you're pretty cool too, but I constantly compliment you, as does my wife and as does my mother and everybody else. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you
I hope people have enjoyed this. You guys have work to do.
We have a
game. We're going to let you out of here. Mosse, we're going to get out of here. I got some stuff going on later on this week.
You always do, buddy.
I got some stuff.
Busy
very,
guy.
very
You're
sneaky.
a busy guy.
All right, listen. Thank you so much for tuning into this live show. We hope we have given you a really in-depth type of look of what this roster is. I will leave you with this. And I was talking with Jenny Taft, the great Jenny Taft, in Austin this week, and she had mentioned that Mauricio Pochettino had come up to her and said, "Hey, Jenny, do you know this movie, Miracle?" And she said, "Yeah, we know Miracle." And Poch has been kind of taken with this concept of doing things that people say can't be done, doing things bigger than yourselves. Hopefully there's an element of the 1980 hockey team that is part of this soccer team, the U.S. soccer team this summer. And to the point we were talking about earlier, before that, the U.S. got their ass kicked leading up to that Olympics, the U.S. hockey team. So things can happen right now. We don't want our U.S. team to get their ass kicked right now. I don't think they are going to, but this is going to be a big test here in this window against the likes of Belgium and Portugal. And regardless of what happens, we will come on and we will scream and yell about it. And so we're looking forward to that. And we will have all the coverage of all the games and everything that is going on, whether it's here in terms of the U.S. or around the world. We got qualifying coming up, another 6 teams to be added to this record 48-team World Cup, 104 games. We're going to bring it to you every single day. Pull up a chair at this wonderful buffet of soccer that we are going to give you for around 6 weeks this summer. It's going to be wonderful. You can see the likes of Stu Holden and John Strong, and believe me, whether you know it or not, a lot of David Mosse will come through the camera. All right, pound, left, right, up and down, double fisting over there. Smash that button over there on the old YouTube channel. By the way, YouTube, pretty big stuff when it comes to YouTube in this World Cup. We'll talk to you again later on. And until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.